The panel we have for you today represents a variety of perspectives across the state, which should make for an interesting conversation that demonstrates the multifaceted nature of the issue of immigration. First, I will introduce our panelists and allow some time for initial comments. After any follow-up questions that may occur, we will open the floor for questions from the audience. First, we have Jeffery Hall, Associate Director of National Affairs for the Arkansas Farm Bureau. In a column published earlier this summer in Arkansas Agriculture Magazine, the president of the Arkansas Farm Bureau mentioned how the specific labor needs of farmers in Arkansas differ from those from other states in the country. Could you describe those specific needs and how they shape the Arkansas Farm Bureau's stance on immigration reform?
Yes, thanks for having me today to talk about agriculture and its perspective towards immigration reform. Immigration is an extremely important issue to agriculture. Farm labor is needed to produce much of the food that we all enjoy and the crops that bring billions of dollars to our nation's economy. A workable, affordable, and efficient agriculture labor program has been one of the goals of farm bureaus for more than a decade. The traditional programs like the H-2A program was created to provide the workforce primarily for your fruits and vegetable farmers, which we do have some fruit and vegetable production here in Arkansas. We're more of the traditional row crop agriculture. We're #1 in rice production. We're heavily in the poultry, as many of you all realize, with the #1 poultry company here being Tyson. So our needs are a little different than places in the country such as your Californias that are heavily fruits and vegetables. So what we need more than a H-2A type of program, we need a new agriculture visa program that would allow the employers and the employees some flexibility to agree upon the employment terms that will work for both of them. Stability via an agriculture visa that will last at least 3 years and one that can be renewed. A way for farm workers who are here in this country illegally to apply for legal status as they continue to work in agriculture. So those are some of the key points that we work with as we work with our delegation in crafting an immigration reform that will work for all of agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Next, we have Dr. Zulma Toro, Provost and Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Thank you for being here. You partnered with Mayor Stodola in June to urge the passing of comprehensive immigration reform, stating that reform makes economic sense. Could you discuss how the Senate bill would impact higher education in Arkansas and what effect this could have on the state's overall economy?
Well, first of all, let me just share with you some history about the higher education system in this country. You may know that our higher education system is considered the best in the world, and it's not by chance. And one of the main reasons why our higher education system have enjoyed the world leadership is because of the talent and diverse perspective we have in our faculty and our staff. Almost 50 years ago, our country approved and implemented an immigration system that encouraged the great minds of the world to come here to work in higher education institutions or to pursue graduate education. Upon graduation, a very high percentage of these individuals were able to stay in our country, and they joined the ranks of academia. That's why our higher education system, it is what it is today. In addition to that, we also have encouraged and accepted immigrants who raised their children here, and their children went on to pursue advanced degrees, and after that, they joined academia. Today, that generation of faculty members, scientists, and leaders are very close to retirement. We need to replace them and to expand the higher education system in this country so we can offer higher education opportunities to more of our youngsters. If the reform is approved, that will allow us to retain here those graduate students that we are graduating now, mainly in the sciences and engineering, and they will be able to replace the people we have in higher education who are currently retiring. I was just sharing a while ago that currently, when we are hiring faculty members, mainly in the sciences and engineering, we cannot find candidates, domestic candidates that compete for the positions. We have to interview whoever is available, and they are, for the most part, internationals. And if we cannot keep them here, and other countries like Canada, Brazil, and India are offering them visas and ways to join their ranks in academia, and we are not doing that. Therefore, we are losing to the talent to those countries. We are not able to replace our talent. We are not going to be able to do the research in the universities that will keep us competitive in the 21st century. The innovation and technology advancements that has made us great as a country will go away, and we will be losing to those countries that I mentioned before.
Thank you. And next we have Dr. Therese West-Scantlebury, President and CEO of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation. Thank you for being with us. In January, the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation published a profile of immigrants in Arkansas, a 3-volume study of demographic characteristics of the state's immigrant population. What was the motivation behind conducting these studies, and what do you believe were some of the report's most salient points?
So we did the study because we want Arkansas, or Arkansans, to have a data-based, data-driven conversation and not just an opinion or perception-based conversation. So that was the motivation. It was to provide policy leaders, community leaders, business leaders, all stakeholders within all residents and stakeholders within our state with data to have this conversation about what is taking place with immigrants in Arkansas and not have it purely be driven by perception and opinion. Some of the salient points, I do want to point out, it is a 3-volume study. It is available on our website at wrfoundation.org. And it's in 3 parts. One is a profile of immigrants that talks about the demographic characteristics. Volume 2 talks about the fiscal impact of immigrants in Arkansas. And Volume 3 is a special volume that we did on Marshall Islanders here in our state to educate all of us on the Marshall Island community here in Arkansas. So the highlights of the study. The main headline is that immigrants in Arkansas are contributing positively to the social and economic fabric of our state. Immigrants in Arkansas is keeping Arkansas thriving and vibrant and doing well. That is the headline. So what are some specifics? And I'm going to ask my colleague, Jerry, if you would just hand some of these out. We don't have enough for everyone. Oh, we have this nifty infographic. I appreciate it. Thank you. Jerry's one of our board members, by the way, and he has many duties, including handing out handouts. We appreciate him for it. And actually, I also want to recognize Reagan, who's also on our team, who was the lead principal on the study for us at the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation. And I don't know if we have any other board members or team members here, but I thank you all for your great work. So generally what we're finding, or what we found in the study, are these: that Arkansas, 5% of Arkansas's population are immigrants, which is much smaller than a national average of 13%. So it's just 5%. And so when we talk about the proliferation or the numbers, we have to keep in mind in terms of percentages, it's 5%. They're concentrated mainly in Washington, Benton, and Sebastian counties, mainly, and then Pulaski County, and then dispersed throughout the rest of the state, 44% in those counties I just named. Our immigrants here, 2/3 are Latino or from Latin American countries, and the other third are from Europe, Africa, Asia, and all other parts of the world. So it becomes a primarily Latino conversation because the majority of our immigrants are Latino, but we have to keep in mind that we have people from all around the world that are immigrants here in Arkansas. They're vested here in Arkansas because we found that the immigrants who are here had been here for 10 years or more, that over half of our Latino immigrants own homes, and 2/3 of our non-Latino immigrants are owning homes. So they're here, they're living here, been here for a long time. We're also finding in terms of economic benefits that for every $1 the state spends on services to Latino families, and we define that as education, justice system, and health, we actually receive a $7 return. Immigrants contributed close to $4 billion to the economy here in Arkansas, $4 billion with a B. So it's a significant amount of money that immigrants contribute to our state. And again, for every $1 we spend on services to immigrants, we actually get a $7 return. Latino men are the highest employed, have the highest employment rate of any group in our state, including whites and African Americans, at 88%. So they are here, they're working and working hard, owning homes and contributing. So those are, I would say, many of the highlights of the study that I would talk about now, and we can talk more in the Q&A.
Definitely, thank you. Next we have Mr. Randy Zook, President and CEO of the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being here. You've advocated for immigration reform, stating that the current system is hindering growth in Arkansas's agriculture and high-tech sectors. Could you please discuss the association between immigration and the high-tech industry in this state, and how this influences your support of the Senate immigration bill?
Thank you, Marissa, and thanks for having me. I guess I'm the token Philistine up here on this panel, so I'll try not to be too outrageous in my comments, though. Let me twist that question slightly, because the thing I'm discovering that we're discovering as an organization around the state is that we have more and more businesses, primarily manufacturing businesses, which are constrained in their ability to grow because of the lack of available workforce that is, number one, able to go to work, and number two, importantly, willing to go to work. We have a shortage of people, particularly for what you might call entry-level positions in manufacturing plants. I was in one business recently, I won't name it, but it's a large manufacturing complex in southern Arkansas with about 1,000 employees, and I asked the general manager, I said, do you have any big growth opportunities? Can you grow your business? He said, yeah, sure, we could. We just can't find people to fill the jobs. And I said, well, how many, if you could find them, could you put to work? And he thought for a minute and kind of scratched around. And he said, well, we've got 5 products we're continuing to manufacture in China that we would like to bring back, but we would take about 400 employees, which was kind of stunning to me that we had that much latent capacity and potential that's going unrealized in the state. And so that started me thinking about this and working on it and poking around in other businesses. And it's literally true across the state. There are several thousand potential jobs that are just not being that are just not coming to fruition in the economy because of the lack of available people to take those jobs. Now, able is a qualification that's pretty important to understand, because one of the key issues that we really don't want to talk about a whole lot in Arkansas yet is the issue of drug abuse, especially out in the rural parts of the state. I don't know what's driving it. I just know that it's out of control and it's dangerous and it's affecting our economy. So, but in this context, I think it's important to note that businesses across the country are coming to the realization that we need a fresh infusion of new immigrant laborers, potential employees, workers, not just in low end but also high end. We need to be, to Dr. Toro's point, we need to be stapling a green card to every diploma that we issue out of a 4-year institution for graduate degrees for master's and PhD candidates, especially in the STEM areas, staple a green card to it and, you know, maybe exempt them from half the citizenship test or something. But do whatever it takes to keep them in the States, because they are the intellectual capital that we've got to continue to bring into the U.S. 40% of the Fortune 500 companies in the United States that are based here in the U.S. were founded by immigrants. The entrepreneurial energy and the intellectual capital that it takes to conceive, start, build, grow, and sustain major business enterprises very often has come from folks here who come here in the traditional sense, with a dream and looking for an opportunity that they can't find at home. So we've got to make sure that we keep the doors open, and this is we need these people to be given some sort of reasonable legal status and some sort of reasonable treatment for future growth of our economy.
Thank you. This question is for all four of you, so whoever would like to answer. What do you believe is the largest misconception the general public has concerning immigration or immigration reform in Arkansas?
The misconception is that everybody's undocumented. That is the biggest misconception. And one of the things that our study does is dispel that myth completely. We found that in Arkansas that just around 2% of the population is undocumented, but even that's precarious because it just means they're in some form or some stage that we just couldn't quantify. But that is the biggest misperception, is that people are here illegally, and it just simply, based on the data, is not so.
I will say it's that immigrants will take away from U.S. Citizens the jobs that are available. And as we have explained before, there is a need for certain skills and knowledge base that immigrants, for the most part, have, that it's not available in the current U.S. Citizens. So that's a very big misconception.
Also in agriculture, just like she said, the misconception, I believe, is these seasonal workers take away from American workers. And with farm work being extremely challenging, Americans choose other types of employment. There's a lot more opportunities there today for all of us than they were just 10 to 15 years ago. So agriculture needs that workforce.
Yeah.
And I also want to be clear, not everybody is working in the field either. We're talking about folks who are professions, doctors, lawyers, engineers, technicians, and the like. So the other misconception is that they're all doing our lawn and doing our carpets, and that needs to stop real soon, because that's actually not the case.
One final point. The last myth, I guess, is that the poultry processing plants are filled with undocumented labor. This is just absolutely, totally false. Just not true. It's just completely bogus rap that the poultry business gets in that regard.
Okay, thank you. And how does the debate on immigration reform here in Arkansas relate to and compare with the national dialogue that's occurring right now?
How does it, say it again, Marissa?
How does the debate on immigration reform here in Arkansas relate and compare to the national dialogue?
I think nationally there's probably more attention on high-tech, advanced degree kind of folks and the need for them. There's more attention to that. There's less attention paid in most parts of the country to what we really need, in my view, or have a greater need for, and that's entry-level folks and agriculture workers. So I guess the exception to that would be probably California. California is acutely aware of the need for agricultural workers.
And I would say the national debate really does talk about the pathway to citizenship far more than we do here in Arkansas. And that probably for me would be the biggest part of the conversation that I think we're a bit behind on. In additionally, feeling pretty strongly about making sure that all of our citizens are educated. Getting back to a misconception, the folks who have been here 10 years or more now have kids who are U.S. citizens. They may be non-English speaking U.S. citizens, but they are U.S. citizens. And denying them access and denying their parents access to education and employment and other opportunities then makes those families far more vulnerable than they need or should be. And so for us here in this state, it is talking about how we take care of our families and that pathway to citizenship in terms of taking care of our families.
I guess in the agriculture sector, the national debate, especially in the Californias and the Carolinas, that they rely more heavily on migrant workers than Arkansas agriculture. We are a little slower to get to the debate of the issue, but what you've seen over the last 5 or 6 years is more of our traditional row crop agriculture going towards the H-2A program, making that program work as difficult as it is to apply for. So I believe as we move forward through this debate, more and more people are starting to talk to their congressmen and senators as they see them out in various meetings.
I think that we are not talking about this being an economic imperative. And it's an economic imperative for the reasons that we have discussed so far, but also it's an economic imperative because if you provide the immigrants the opportunity to pursue higher education, for example, that will have implications in healthcare cost. That will have implications in terms of the number of people paying higher taxes, and therefore that will have a very high economic impact. I think we have not been talking about those issues so far.
And it becomes even more important as the doctor's talking about, because in Arkansas, we're actually, African Americans and whites, we're not reproducing ourselves, and we're aging. And so at some point, we're going to need a population or we won't have a population. And immigrants can be, again, if we develop and approach this as a very open and friendly way, can be a way that we bring in talent for our economic imperative, for our future, in addition to just building our communities and building our culture and the like. But in a few years, we actually will have more older people than younger people. And I'm not talking about like 2050. I mean 2020, 2015-ish. I'm sorry. But it becomes very true. And so our future and the vibrancy of our future depends upon attracting others to our state.
So now we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. When I call on you, please wait for the microphone. Yes?
Lucky enough to have Eduardo Velasquez as my next door neighbor. He is the head of the Mexican consulate here. And we have made some conversations over the course of the last couple of years as to the fact that an awful lot of Hispanics that come here end up leaving this country because of a lack of employment. And when I'm listening to Mr. Zook speak of an industry that has the opportunity for 400 jobs, it would trigger my mind to believe that not just Arkansans, but even Hispanics or other immigrants do not want those jobs, and maybe it is because of a lack of pay and benefits.
In this case, that would categorically not fit the facts. That business, the pay scale is well above the average or the per capita income in Arkansas in that plant. They employ about 1,000 people in a county that's only got about 9,000 people in it. So basically what their challenge is, they've got everybody working within 35 miles of the plant that wants a job. So they've basically run out of people there, except for the undocumented Hispanics who are floating around that part of the state in the cash economy, working off the books in some form or another, or self-employed, or they're entrepreneur. The people who start businesses in a lot of communities now are people who can't go on the books. So you start a service business of some sort, or a restaurant, or what. It's in the cash economy. But in this case, it's not a question of wages. It's just a matter of there aren't enough bodies available. I'm not arguing that pay is not often the case. I know a lot of businesses that gripe because people won't do $15 an hour jobs for $9 an hour.
Yep.
Hello. My name's Tom Travis. I'm an immigration lawyer here in Little Rock area, about 20 years, been doing it. I've got several hundred young clients that have I represent several hundred young people that have been approved for deferred action for childhood arrivals. They've been here, living here for 10 or more years possibly. They've received employment authorization from the government, Social Security cards, driver's license from the state of Arkansas. They've lived here several years, gone to school here, high school, a lot of them in elementary school. The parents have lived here 10 or 15 years. Yet when they go for post-secondary education for the U of A or any systems, any entities in the state of Arkansas, they're being required to pay out-of-state tuition. And I think that is absolutely wrong. They should be able to pay in-state tuition.
The smartest thing for them to do is go get defined as a resident of Texas, because we don't charge out-of-state tuition to kids from Texas. We treat them like they're from New Jersey, for heaven's sakes, which is really bad.
Well, and the other response to that is that we do need to work on the DREAM Act. I mean, we need more citizens, we need more voice, we need more advocacy, we need more people to join and participate in the movement. We actually have some folks that we fund at the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation from the AUCC, Arkansas United Coalition, Community Coalition, that has been leading that effort around the DREAM Act. I don't know if you guys wanted to say anything in response to Mr. Tom's question.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, and thank you to the panelists. As an immigration reform activist here in the state, I can say that it's events like this that affirm for us that this isn't just an immigrant issue, it's an Arkansas issue. And it really does cross sectors, and we do appreciate this gathering today and for everyone's interest. And I would say on the State DREAM Act, what emphasizes a great point there, and actually Mr. Zook, thank you so much, because you were so actively involved with us this last spring, but many times when we talk about immigration reform, we just look at the federal level and are remiss to what the state government can do. And when we talk about the extension of in-state tuition to our undocumented students, that's actually addressed here at the state level. And so where we have conversations with our federal congressmen, it's also wonderful to continue to engage our state senators and state representatives as well. I have to applaud all the dreamers here in the room who have been long in this march, like the Ana Aguayos, the Rosa Velasquez, and the Special Sanders, who have helped raise that awareness with our elected officials, but many times they still say to us, well, we don't believe you all have convinced our constituents yet, and we're afraid we're going to lose our vote if we support this. And that was the number one reason we lost that opportunity by 3 votes this last spring. So just to say that we came our closest that we had in the 5-year campaign of a great champion in State Senator Elliott, but it does prove that the reality between the broader support and what the broader Arkansans are saying, and I will say right now, and actually would be really curious to hear from the panelists, I was going to raise my hand for a question as well, to direct it back to these experts, but just to say, what it is from your perceptions it'll take to move our elected officials, because we've also been taking this town hall period to speak with all 4 of our congressmen, and all 4 have told us that the only immigration reform they'll support is enhanced border security. And that they believe that they are still hearing continuously that Arkansans still want more border security as opposed to a pathway to citizenship or a comprehensive reform that looks at the visas, whether it's agriculture, STEM, or otherwise. And so from your knowledgeable perspectives, I know we sure would appreciate any insights you might be able to give us in terms of what you think it might take to move our Arkansan congressmen.
Let me just make a comment about what it will take for our state system to provide in-state tuition for these students. I think that industry can make a difference working with the elected officials and educating them in terms of how much of a competitive strategy this could be. Other states are ahead of us already, and therefore companies and industries will, looking for talent to locate some facilities, will prefer those states because it will be easier for them to get the workforce they need. If we present the issue that way to our elected officials, and we have the industry people talking to elected officials, we will have a better chance to get support from the state in our higher education system. We cannot do it unless we get the support from the state. But I think it's, again, an economic imperative.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to challenge the panel with a political question. I think everybody's in agreement, even the Republicans, that immigration reform is a necessity. What's stopping them to agree and to vote in favor is the path to citizenship. If that were a condition that were take off the table, would you think that Republicans will come on board and approve the immigration reform?
If the pathway to citizenship were taken off the table, would it be easier to pass immigration reform? You know, because you got border is such a huge challenge. There are other parts of that bill that still require debate, conversation, and the like. That the pathway, I don't know, it's a major factor, but I don't know if it's the factor.
Well, as you know, Cherise, I'm a journalist and I also represent LULAC, and I've been talking to some members of the delegation, and they all tell me, and the Republicans tell me, we have only one Democrat, we are in favor of reform, but we will not approve the path to citizenship. There must be another way, a temporary permit, a temporary residence, or whatever. So my question is, could we convince Republicans to take it off the table, give them a temporary work permit? The border issues, again, it's an issue that, you know, the wall in China tumbled, the wall in Berlin tumbled, so this one will tumble too.
Well, bear in mind, remember, the Senate bill had bipartisan support. There were quite a few Republicans who, at the end of the day, voted for that bill. Now it's stuck in the House, but it's caught in a kind of a perfect storm in the House. The House is determined to self-destruct, you know, and they're doing a pretty darn good job of it, you know, and they're going to do an even better job next month when we get to the debt ceiling and the budget battle and all that stuff. So it's caught up in all of that in the calendar. I think after the 14 elections, this will likely get more support from Republican House members, because I think there'll be a different mix of them. Now, will it be enough? I don't know. But the attitude on this whole thing has shifted enormously in the past 12 months, especially following the passage of the Senate bill. The Senate bill is kind of a wake-up call to the Republican Party. and hopefully they'll respond, and I think they will at the end of the day. It's going to take some time and some hard work.
And speaking as the citizen of Arkansas and not the president of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation right now, which I know is hard to separate, I wouldn't allow them to take the pathway off the table. I mean, it's not, I just wouldn't. Just wouldn't. It's because even if you take it off the table, it's just going to come back again and again and again and again and again. And so it has to be resolved. Whether it's in 2014, 2015, 2020, it has to be resolved. And I just would not, I myself as a citizen would not allow them to even take it off the table to begin with.
The only other point that I would make is over the last decade, you've seen various immigration proposals introduced there in Congress, all of which had their own particular problems. They fell short. They fell short also of the political aspect of it, of actually getting across the finish line. We have never been this close to actually having a comprehensive, meaningful reform to provide a solution of this complex problem. You know, I publicly, we too, in Arkansas Farm Bureau, supported the Senate comprehensive bill along with the state chamber, the National Chamber, American Farm Bureau. I do want to say thanks to Senator Pryor for his support of the bill. But we are as close as we've ever been to getting a meaningful solution. So I'm not sure what the crystal ball would say at the end of the day. I do know there's some other pressures, the debt ceiling, like Randy had mentioned, that's going to really get their attention whenever they come back from August recess. And then back to your question about what can we all do during the recess. I mean, myself, I've contacted many of the House members. That's where our focus is now. We've got to get the House to do something. We have had farmers to go to all of the town hall meetings, not only the town hall meetings, but any opportunity that we saw that we could get our guys and ladies in front of the congressmen and ask them that this is a complex issue. We all agree that it is a problem, that it's a complex problem, no simple answers, and border security or enforcement only type of legislation is not the problem. That will only intensify the problem. So we have to have a comprehensive solution.
Thank you. And she get her question.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Aguayo. I'm a community activist and also a worker advocate. My question for the panel today is, so far we've heard the need for entry-level agriculture and also STEM jobs in an Arkansas economy. But my question goes back into, there's a factor that is not being talked about in the current immigration bill, and that is worker protections. I'll say this, that we have seen cases within the state where workers who are legally able to work here as guest workers through the H-2A or H-2B visas are being exploited by farmers or by different employers with a cash industry and with a payroll industry. And so our concern is, what will Arkansas legislature or what will Arkansas leaders do to protect workers in this industry if we're so needing this area?
I think Arkansas will do what it should do. It will enforce the laws, and I think, is there some egregious oversight or lack of oversight or whatever in some areas, then it needs to be pointed out to proper officials. And I think our state government and even local governments, most local governments, will do what's right. So I don't know if there's any new law required. Probably just need to enforce the existing law, wage laws, wage administration laws, pay rates, and all those sorts of things. All the guys, the people I know, especially farmers who bring people in for seasonal work, I mean, they play this so tightly and by the book, it's unbelievable. I mean, I know one guy that brings in about 350 people in Bradley County to work his tomato and watermelon crops, and it's absolutely by the book. I mean, it's just, there's not any abuse. It's documented to the nth degree. I mean, he has to go jump through all kinds of hoops to get those folks there, because without them, those crops would not be harvested and tended. I can tell you that. It would not happen, because he first is required to offer the jobs to domestic, already here U.S. citizens, and he'll run an ad in 5 counties surrounding his farming operation, and he'll get 5 applications, maybe 6. So he's got to bring people in. I mean, California is losing 10% or 15% of some of their crops because they're not able to get an adequate supply of people in to pick those crops. Those crops are literally rotting in the field in many cases, and this is not real smart, you know. So I think workers are going to be protected by existing laws and by responsible public officials. If they're not, then somebody's head needs to roll.
The only other thing I would add too, Randy, is that the Farm Bureau leaders and the agriculture, the farmers across the state that I work with do follow the law through the H-2A program. They pay the workers transportation from their home country to Arkansas, to their operation. They provide housing. They provide bathrooms out in the fields. They pay above minimum wage. It's an adverse effect wage rate that's set by the Department of Labor. If there's bad actors, they need to be dealt with. There's laws on the books to deal with it. Addressing your point about state laws and state representatives and senators, our position has always been that immigration is a national issue. We shouldn't have a patchwork approach of immigration reform through various state legislatures. So we've been a strong proponent of immigration reform needs to happen in Congress and not throughout the country by the state legislature.
The other thing too, unfortunately, it's a silent community, and that silent community got to get loud. And the responsibility is for that community to get loud. Because you're going to hear, when you present a question like that publicly like this, you're going to hear about how everybody's complying. And what you're saying is there are folk who are not. But for me to know that there is non-compliance means that those folk will have to get organized, get the courage, and make their voices heard so that the issues can be addressed. Otherwise, you're just going to hear over and over again how we do have laws, and we don't know the person that you're talking about, and the like. So it's about organizing advocacy and getting loud, or making sure those silent voices are heard so that the change can occur, which you know.
Thank you. Another question? Here, please.
Thank you. I think my question is still on in-state tuition. I realize that some have like working visas, and we've lived here maybe for like 6 to 7 years, and it's the process that is delaying your green card or leading to citizenship, and still you can't get in-state tuition. So I want to know what the universities are doing, especially like UALA. They say you have to have a green card to get in-state tuition, though you work and pay taxes.
As I mentioned before, we are part of a system, UA, and we have to follow what the state have established as regulations and rules for the university system. We are not allowed to establish our own rules and regulations. That's why I mentioned the need for industry to work with elected officials. We need to go at that level and change the law and the regulations at that level.
Okay, and we have time for one more question.
Thank you for taking my question. It may seem rather mundane, but at the very outset of this, it was stated that the biggest problem we have is perception. And so I'd like some clarification on that, because you made the statement in your numbers that 5% of the population of Arkansas is immigrant people. Was that correct? You also made the statement that 2% of the population is undocumented.
No, it's 2% of the 5%.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify because that makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Well, let's give the panel a round of applause.